are the most powerful words that we can say about ourselves. What we say after those words becomes our reality. I'm happy. I'm an idiot. The words I am determine what we're feeling and what we're thinking about ourselves, about our situations, and can in turn impact what we're feeling about others. Related in some ways to this was something I shared recently, which was related to the idea of suffering. The gap in between where we are versus where we believe we should be. That gap is where suffering exists. Instead of being able to live in the present experiences where we currently are, we yearn for this which we have not yet reached, or not reached yet. Not yet reached or not yet, same thing. And instead of giving ourselves some grace and focusing on the achievements that we've got to even get to this point so far, we beat ourselves up for this gap, this part of it that we haven't yet got to, where we believe we should be. Now, this in turn leads us to what I describe as where we should be shoulding on ourselves. I should be there. I should do this or that. Shoulding on ourselves. And leads us to experiencing the suffering of that gap between where we are and where we believe we should be. Now, someone shared with me a book recommendation called The Gap and the Gain, which talks a lot about this idea of suffering being the gap where we are versus where we should be, and how the suffering is that gap that we get ourselves caught in. That's where the suffering exists. And that directly determines our personal sense of happiness. Now, most people that I meet with say that they want to be happy. But what does this even mean? Now, the book discusses that it believes most people are not happy because they often see happiness as something out there that they have yet to attain. Now, this is also written in the Declaration of Independence, which the book mentions it is become ingrained in American culture, and it's related to the idea of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Believing, in a way, that happiness is something that we need to constantly work towards, but to attain it was likely impossible. It's always around the next corner, something in the near or distant future. Happiness is out there, which in turn means that it's not here with us right now. Therefore, a struggle ensues. We want to be happy, but when happiness is moving on to the next new thing or the need to get to that next level of goal or accomplishment without savoring what we currently have or our current achievement, then this isn't happiness. It's the proverbial rat race. Now, I want to share some verses of a poem that was shared prior to this message. The poem is called 3 Peaks of Happiness by Atman bin Ravi. And part of it reads, "What is happiness? Is it success? Is it achievement that creates so much stress? Success creates money that creates pleasure and bliss. But this is not what true happiness is." Sometimes we think that when we have our act together, when everything is going right, then we will be happy. When we are successful, then we will be happy. When we have accolades and achievements, then we will be happy. When insert whatever want or need we have here happens, then we will be happy. The poem also reads, "Money can buy pleasure. They can't buy happiness. Money can buy medicines, but health we can miss. Money can buy a diamond ring, but love it cannot bring." It goes on to say that money can buy these pleasures and fleeting moments of fun or joy, but none of these things are able to sustain a state of happiness. Not just the feeling of happiness, but a state of happiness. Between these ideas of expectations of where we should be versus allowing ourselves to learn how to gain appreciation of where we might currently be, it's important to note that happiness is not simply an emotional experience, but as I mentioned, it's a state of being, which incorporates wellness of mind, body, spirit, and learning as best we can how to healthily detach from causes of suffering that get in our way of staying present to the current moment. Another quote from the book I mentioned earlier reads, "It is an enormous burden to be in the mindset that happiness is something that you need to go out and get." When we're in the mindset that we need to do something in order to find happiness, like a really weird game of hide and seek, then we're missing the point of what it means to live our lives as human beings. Too often we fall into the trap of doing, becoming human doings that we forget to slow down and simply be. The book notes that when we're trying to chase happiness outside of ourselves, it can mean that we're disconnected from ourselves internally. Now, this can seem so true, especially when we think of that phrase, no matter where you go, there you are. If we're chasing something externally, or we're not changing our internal selves, then it's most likely that nothing is going to satisfy us and give us that happiness that we yearn for. Going back to that poem, it quite rightly notes that happiness, especially when based in comfort and pleasure, can also be disrupted by sorrow, pain, and other negative forces that can take us away from a sense of serenity that we believe happiness must be. Now, in these moments, we may want to numb out the pain, trauma, sorrow, or other negative experiences so that we can try and feel less of the discomfort of these negative forces that we might be experiencing in our lives. And when we do, we are effectively disconnected and disconnecting from ourselves internally. And the idea of happiness once more becomes something fleeting in the distance that seems unattainable, but that we still long for nonetheless. Now, this does not mean that when we have these negative experiences that we have to slap a smile on our face and simply push through it, because that's called toxic positivity, and happiness isn't about that at all. But it is about allowing ourselves to take the time to tend to that which needs to be processed within us, and recognize that as we learn how to healthily process through that which has caused us difficulty and trouble, as many have heard me say several times, face it till you make it, we can find that sense of peace or contentment, which is ultimately the happiness that most of us are searching for. Going back to my opening words of this message, I am are the most powerful words that we can say about ourselves. What we say after those words becomes our reality. When the words that follow that focus on the deficit of the happiness we're chasing after, then we may feel as if we failed, maybe let ourselves down, let others down, and we risk giving up for not being good enough, labeling ourselves with those I am and ending with a failure, a screw up, not good enough, or similar words. I am are the most powerful words that we can say about ourselves. What we say after those words becomes our reality. When it comes to the idea of happiness, the need to recognize that yes, we may have hopes for the future, but we're not there yet. But look how far we have already come. Again, the book, The Gap in the Gain, teaches us that if we want to experience a state of happiness, to focus on what it is we have achieved, what it is that has been in our control, rather than the experience which leaves us unsatisfied with our current situation, even if we have come far from where we once were. Going back to a message I gave earlier this month, with a story I told about Father Bill, when he was getting ready to receive his 39-year recovery coin, he told his home group people that he simply wanted the white chip given to newcomers. And he was asked, why? Why, Bill? 39 years, this is such a big deal. And he replied that, just like everyone else, I'm only one day away from starting over. Now, I think of this story and the idea of happiness. With so much humility, he sought to remind newcomers who may look at someone receiving a 39-year coin as their gap, something that maybe in that moment seems unachievable and then leads them to potentially feeling less than in that moment. But instead, Father Bill's words reminded them that even if they were 1 minute, 1 hour, or 1 day sober, that they had something to be proud of, that they had achieved something that maybe 1 minute, 1 hour, or 1 day ago, they may have thought was not possible. When we give ourselves permission to slow down and stop chasing after that which we externally seek, and instead try to focus on a sense of internal balance, wellness, and peace, we may begin to find an assurance of happiness present to us in the moment, rather than out there in the ethereal mystery of the future. And this in turn reminds me of a line from Psalm 46, which reads, "Be still and know that I am God." I want us to take a moment and reflect on those words. As we break it down, it can be a very good reminder of how to stay present to the current moment, and how to remind ourselves that, once more, we're not human doings, we are human beings. It doesn't read, run around and know that I am God, and it doesn't read, go chasing after something and know that I am God. It says, be still and know that I am God. When we slow down and are still, we can begin to honor the connection we may have to the divine mystery, by whatever name we may call it, and the part of that divine mystery that lives in us just as much as it lives outside of us. Sort of reminds me a little of the Hindu term namaste, and a translation of the divine and self is same in you and me. The part of the divine lives in us and in others just as much as it also exists outside of us. And by being still, we get to commune with its presence. We get to listen to it. Maybe it speaks to us in the still, small voice of gut feeling that we may get, or the aha moments, or as we notice the leaves begin to change around us, or the birds singing, or other aspects of nature. By being still and staying present in mindful reflection, we allow ourselves to be here now, in the present, getting deeper in touch with our inner self, the divinity which resides within, which in turn helps us get deeper in touch with the connection to the energies in the world around us. And when we recognize the power of this divine mystery residing in us and in the world also resides in others, it can therefore help us get in better connection with those around us too. And isn't that what happiness is? The desire to be better connected to ourselves, others, the world around us, and to a source of hope that we can work on building trust and relationship with. When we learn to be still and sit with the divinity that exists within us, rather than putting unhelpful and demeaning words after those I am statements that we may say about ourselves, we do begin to find that sense of connection once more. And it can help us focus on what we have rather than what we may not have or what we may not have yet. As we think about these words, may we recognize that once more we are human beings, not human doings. And I'd like to invite you right now to be present to this current moment. Take a few deep breaths. And I want you to reflect on each of these statements. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know. Be still. Be. As we remember that we are human beings, may the happiness that we all seek be here with us now and always. Amen.